Did you ever see something that made you say, how did they do that? Did you ever see something that made you say, how did they do that? A fun welcome to our podcast with Randy Chris, where we talk to those who did it. Tell us how you did it. Tell us how you did it. Tell us how you did it.
Did you ever see something that made you say, how did they do that? I'm your host, Randy Chris, and welcome to my podcast, How Did They Do That? Where we talk to those people who did it. Today, I've got Drew Steele, who is a nationally recognized radio host and producer. He's done about everything you can think of in the music business, including writing, producing albums, people of so many people that I saw on his resume that you'd all love to talk to. And so I want to ask Drew, A, what it's like and how'd he get there and how'd he do it? So good morning, Drew. I just want to say hello to you and let you introduce yourself a little.
All right. Well, good to see you, Randy. My name is Drew Steele. I work presently at 92.5 Fox News Radio in Fort Myers, Naples. I've been doing the station for 12 years, been on the radio for about 35 years in this market.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. And in the music business for about the same amount of time, well, a little longer than that. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of different work in the music industry and ultimately work and radio at the same time. So it's been quite an adventure, Randy, to say the least.
Wow. So you must have started young. I've seen your picture.
Thank you. I'm not as young as you would imagine. I'm 57. So I started in radio when I was in my 20s. And music I've been doing back and forth, messing around, doing small little things while I was in college, and then ultimately trying to get more serious about it. So really things started to break in the 90s for me.
Oh, super. So I guess you were musically inclined as a child and played in the school band and things like that?
Close. I play by ear. I'm not trained. In school, I was a all-state tuba player. Yes, I was.
Wow.
I admit that. Yes, I was.
That's odd, isn't it?
That is very strange, considering that nobody in school thought it was cool. So the cool factor went down. But in high school, I was in a band, in a rock band, playing bass. I self-taught. And so that's mostly what I do. More of what I do on the music side is production. I'm not necessarily skilled at any one instrument, but I'm computer capable enough to make whatever it is that I'm producing sound as if I'm playing, or to hire studio musicians to play the parts that I can't to get the sound that I'm looking for.
Well, it takes a village, as they say. When you get a hit record, it's not just one guy, not even the singer, is it?
That's right. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the music industry, the funny thing about the music industry is we used to joke because you'll look at writer's credits on an album, and sometimes you'll see one person that'll write a song. Sometimes you'll see two or three. Sometimes you'll see 5 or 6, and you think, it took 5 or 6 people to write this one song. Sometimes it's just people that are in the room at the time might help with a piece of production here, or maybe add a verse on something there, and they get a piece of the credit. So sometimes it's not necessarily the bulk of the work you're doing, but if you're included, somebody gets 10% here, somebody gets 20% there. They kind of mix it around the way that works,
I'm sure I've always been curious when you hear oldies but goodies, like I have that XM and I can listen to 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Those people are still making money off of those songs.
You better believe it. My songwriting partner right now, and one that I was working with when I signed my contract with EMI Music Publishing in 2000, had a top 5 song in 1991. And he's still making royalties off of that. I have another friend of mine who, when he first started, had the number 13 song on an 11 million copy selling record. And actually, it was more than that. Actually, it was more like 30 million copies sold on one album, 13th cut on the album, never made it to the airwaves, and still made about $1.2 million on it. So, so when you have that kind of volume, when you're talking about publishing, when you have that kind of volume on one album, one song, and remember, he was just a songwriter with someone else. So he shared the songwriting. So you look at a shared songwriting piece, and then you look at the amount of, the volume. You talk about 30 million, and he's still making royalties off of that today. That was roughly what he was making early on, just after a couple of years, but it's still making royalties. And all of those, the one-hit wonders, Randy. You hear about the one-hit wonders all the time, right? And people laugh.
Still make it, right?
You better believe it. You laugh at some of those songs and you say, oh, it's so awful. And it's just a one-hit wonder. Well, let me tell you something. Those people are laughing all the way to the bank because they still collect checks. They may not be as big as they used to be, but they still collect the checks.
So I know you've met Garth Brooks, but I was watching his biography on the History Channel or wherever it was.
Yeah.
And they showed the guy in his past that wrote If Tomorrow Never Comes.
Yeah.
And that guy, from talking to him, from hearing what he sounded like, it made a difference in his whole life. One song that Garth Brooks did.
Yeah, no, you bet. I mean, when you think of a lot of the songwriters or the people that we know in the industry, you'd be surprised about how many people wrote songs that you love that were performed by other artists. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not mistaken. I mean, I Will Always Love You, a big popular song with Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
You know who wrote that, right?
Dolly.
You better believe it, right? And there's a lot of that goes on. The what if. That song was mine sometimes when they would get someone who would land a song and give it to somebody that would make it launch. There's a lot of times when you'll have an artist in the past and even now where you'll write a few songs for different artists. They are hit songs, but you're a performer as well. You never had the opportunity through a record label or someone to perform that song yourself, to become an artist. So you write for people. Next thing you know, they say, hey, listen, I want to be an artist. And then they take new songs that they write and go on to have a very successful career themselves.
Well, I'm happy for you, especially getting checks that are 30 years ago. You got to like that.
Yeah, well, they're tiny. They're not as big as they used to be, Randy. But
but still father-in-law was in the oil business, and he'd get 1/8 of a thing for putting it all together. And those checks kept coming and still coming. And, it's like $208 and $187. But if you get that every month of your life for 50 years.
Yep. Yeah.
They were much larger in the beginning, that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
Well, let's talk about Drew, though.
Okay.
You're in the radio business primarily now?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
And you have your own talk show.
Yes, I do.
Which seems like a big accomplishment to me.
Oh, well, thank you.
And,
it's
and I've certainly heard you. That's why I asked you to be on this podcast, because I listen to you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a local political kind of vent.
Yep.
Although there's plenty of information about other things on there.
Yeah.
But I see you, like last week, I heard you talking to Bill O'Reilly. I've heard you talking to all kind of Trish Reagan comes on there just regularly.
Yeah.
I know Dan Bongino, and while we were prepping for this, you told me that a couple of days ago you had a special surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about that one.
Well, I'm also, I seem to have a lot of things that are going on the side, but a lot of my side work that I do working with other artists on the music side, but then also working with other people who are artists in their own right, people who are politicians or talk show hosts. And there are some people that I've been working with. Dr. Ben Carson is one, and he had a chance to speak with President
Very
Trump
impressive.
recently. Yeah, and so President Trump was on his program. He's got a fantastic podcast, Dr. Ben Carson does. And there are so many people that I've been blessed to have the opportunity to speak with, even in my own show. And it's great when it affords you the opportunity to speak with all kinds of newsmakers and people who really are affecting policy and the things that are going on in the country. And so, I've been truly blessed to be able to speak to a whole lot of folks.
So you personally got to talk with Donald Trump, President Trump.
I didn't personally talk to Donald Trump. It was Ben Carson's program. So he was talking to Trump. I was there producing the show. So I was in while the president was on with the call. I'd like to say I had the chance to talk to the president, but I didn't get a chance to talk to the president this time.
So that was a lot of fun, though, just watching it, right?
Oh, yeah. Just watching the show is great. And watching, and the other thing, Randy, too, is it's great to see the success of others. There's no doubt that the success of other people can only help you and enrich your life and certainly help what is a very important thing right now for many of us, which is the politics of the day. And so the success of certain individuals and what they're able to do is great to see, and means that if you're someone who's politically minded and you're someone who cares about the direction of the country, that just means that the growth of what it is that you want to do yourself is being shared by others that are able to spread a message. It's a great thing to see and watch, and to see others succeed. I really do like that.
So I've heard Senator Mike Lee, who is a powerful senator in Washington, D.C. I mean, there's only 100 of them. And he's one of them, and he's one of the top ones of the 100. And you get to talk to him on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah,
I know you know him. Yeah. I can tell by the way you two are talking that you have a relationship.
Yeah, I spent a year in Salt Lake City back in 2016, and had an opportunity to meet with Senator Lee and be able to have him on my show there when I was on in Salt Lake, and had a chance to spend time speaking with him, visiting him in DC. And again, those kind of relationships, the opportunities that you get, and to be able to speak to them on the air as well, is so important, and the best part about being able to do that is being able to have the audience listen in and be able to hear the conversation as well, and bring it to my audience here in Southwest Florida, and how special that is. To be able to do that, and when they're, you're talking about people like Senator Lee, and you talk about people that are policymakers that are changing our world each and every day with the things that they do. I'm truly blessed to be able to speak.
It's amazing. I mean, I've been a political animal, and I worked on every campaign that Newt Gingrich ran, ever, as a congressman, and then. Turned out when he ran for president in 2012, I lived down here, and I became his co-chair for his presidential election for Lee County. And I saw that you help him.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a brilliant guy.
Yeah. And don't fool yourself. They need you. They need you just as much as you need them to do the right thing and be there in office and be there in the political arena. The people, the grassroots, the ones that help and support are very, very important, critical to the success of not only the candidate, but the country. So where some people might think that it's a small thing that I'm doing and helping this person out locally. It's a small thing that I'm doing, that I'm knocking on a door. It's a small thing that I'm doing, that I'm getting petitions. It's not a small thing. It's huge to have that kind of support. It means so much. And so the fact that you were able to do that. Yeah. And the fact that you were able to do it. I
definitely agree with that. But one thing I like about what I've seen you do is you are passionate about this problem we have in education.
Yeah.
Even in Lee County, but in the broader nation as well.
Yeah.
And I know that you are just adamant that we, work toward getting our schools back.
Yeah.
And you've even had, didn't you have like some kind of a couple of days where you got people out to gather to bring strength? I can't quite remember, but tell me what what you do on that, because it's very important,
Yeah,
vitally important.
Well, just being a vessel and being able to speak to people in the audience and a passionate group that truly care about education. And so there were opportunities to talk about showing up at the school board and having their voices heard and being present to make sure that people hear what the parents have to say. It's important that elected officials understand that they are elected by us, that we entrust them. It's a sacred thing. Our vote is a sacred thing we trust them with. And that if they are not doing what we are asking them to do, then we will have our voices heard. We will speak at the ballot box. That's an important aspect. But in the interim, they need to hear from us. They need to know how we feel about the things that they're doing. And a lot of times, look, it's not everybody, it's not every person that's elected is bad, and we've got to straighten it out.
No.
But there certainly are people who would have you believe, for example, in a nonpartisan race, where we're told in school board races where they're nonpartisan here in our county, a lot of areas of the state and probably places around the country where you're told that this race has no party affiliation. You don't ask, we don't put it down, you don't have to know anything about their party affiliation.
Almost like a judge's race.
Randy, everybody is a partisan, Randy. Everybody is a partisan.
Yes.
In all the things that you do in your life, it doesn't matter what it is, the clothes you wear, the food you pick, the politics you choose, it's partisanship. You figure out where you stand, who you figure out the people that you agree with, the things you like and don't like, and you make choices. And so as a partisan race, you get the opportunity to ask, to vet, to find out about somebody. If they have a D or an R after their name, well, let's find out whether or not their ideology and their belief is something that you believe in. In a nonpartisan race, we're going to be told, and especially in a school board, that there's no politics, Randy, in schools. You don't hear about that at all. Well, that's been a long time now that we've been told that there's no politics in schools. And we come to find out that there's a lot of politics in schools.
And crazy politics too.
Yeah.
Not just politics.
And by the way, I don't know where people that are watching, your audience, I don't know where you stand politically. It doesn't even matter. You have choices to make. If you believe, for example, taking one side, that a union tells teachers what they want to have done, and you know that a union is leaning one way politically, and then that influence goes into your school district, and then your board and teachers follow that, that's politics. If you are a nonpartisan, you are allowing the partisanship to come into the school. As a nonpartisan, you may look and say, well, I agree with that policy. Well, that is you injecting your partisanship, your ideology into the school. Yes. So you're not really being honest. Of course it's political. Of course we want to know. And it's important that everyone vet the candidates. Again, doesn't matter what your politics are. You vet the candidates. You vet the people that you are going to give your vote to, and you ask the bold questions about what you would like to see and your ideology to find out if they match. If they're not a match, then that's not who you should be voting for.
I think you've touched on something that's really important, in that in the United States, we've got about 50% of the electorate, and I don't mean who they voted for. I just mean like 50% of the electorate can't tell you who their county commissioner are, right, or can't even tell you who the governor is sometimes. You see these man on the street interviews, and I mean, it's unbelievable that these things affect their life. Mm-hmm. But when you said honest, that's what irks everybody. These people say one thing to get elected, and then they do the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. That's why I admire somebody like Mike Lee. He's totally consistent on his position. He understands his position, and he lives it.
Yep.
Okay? The hypocrisy of politics, I think, is what really drives people crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it drives people crazy on both sides. And I think that if you're someone who is a left-leaning persuasion, somebody whose center of where you stand is somebody you're going to be frustrated with, just as much as if you are a right-leaning ideology, that someone who is leaning to the center is going to frustrate you. It's both sides. But The problem we always have is that there are going to be politicians that are going to do what has been the meme and the joke for as long as time has been around, which is if you're a politician, you lie. That's what everybody believes. The honest politician doesn't exist, right? So we again are bound to not only vetting people, but when they start to back away from what they promised, then that's when you have to step into that space and be bold to call them out so that other people understand, so that, look, the next election, you won't be here any longer. That, in the purest form, that's the way it should be. Unfortunately, a lot of things in politics have gone off the rails, that there is no time to wait for many, but there is no time to just sit and say, all right, well, we can wait for the next election. Unfortunately, sometimes people have now a belief, an ideology that they think, and they don't care what you think or what the laws are or what the Constitution says or anything else. They're just ready to have their way, and that's pretty much it.
About one issue sometimes, and then no, they don't care how it affects everything else.
Yeah,
and that's kind of scary sometimes, but. You know, what are you going to do? One thing I'm hearing from you, and I really am liking, you really are an educator on your radio. You're 15 hours a week on your show. Mm-hmm. You're number one rated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You get a chance to actually educate the public when they're driving or they're just, at their home listening, sewing. Who knows what they're doing, but you are able to come into their home, into their cars, into their workplace, and actually educate people. I really find that exciting.
Well, it is. It's a big responsibility that I take quite seriously. And
I can tell.
And I think that what gets me excited is when I'm able to tell people through reading, through going to firsthand accounts, going to original documents, to look and see, find out what has been happening with a certain issue, give you my thoughts and opinion, and then the rest is up to you. You can't always listen to a talk show host or a politician and believe that that's the end all be all. You have to do your own work. You've got to do it. And so the most exciting thing for me is, and I don't see it enough, I would like to see it more, but the most exciting thing for me is when I know or I hear that somebody else has done their own homework, has gone out and vetted a candidate, has read the Constitution. There's something, how about that, Randy? How about you read founding documents, right?
Something novel.
Right. You'd be surprised what you would learn if you actually read the Constitution. You might find out exactly what the country is all about, the preamble to the Constitution, the Gettysburg Address, not just read it, but pay attention to it, absorb it, soak it in. And you'd be surprised how a lot of the narratives will break down on their own if they're negative against the country or the Constitution, just by the words that are written on the piece of paper. And it's an important thing to know. And the other thing, Randy, before we change the topic, is this.
Sure.
The Constitution, the rule of law, is only as good as the paper it's printed on if people decide that they don't believe it. If you don't believe in the Constitution, if you think that for whatever reason you don't like it, you don't respect it, you think that it could be better, well, it certainly can be amended. But if you don't believe it and you think it's wrong, then all it is a piece of paper. When that happens en masse, that's a problem. That's it.
Oh, that's kind of where we are. This rule of law thing in these major cities. I mean, it's crazy that they don't want to enforce the law, and people walking up shooting people or throwing them on the subways and for no reason, throwing women downstairs for just no reason, shooting babies the other day. I mean, it's almost scary that they would tolerate it. I don't know why they would take San Francisco and make it a dump. I went and saw Los Angeles myself. It's mile after mile after mile of tents on that LA River. It's like that's their campsite now forever.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you have politicians who are enabling people to continue to do what it is that's going to hold them back, to have more, to be more, to have a dream. And, look, there's a lot of crime involved in a lot of those tent cities and places. Don't fool yourself. There's a lot of different things that are happening there. And I said this today on the program, as a matter of fact. I was sitting with Congressman Byron Donalds, of all people, when I was having this conversation. I want the debate. If you think that the things that I'm talking about, that you're talking about, that I talk about on the radio, if you listen and you say you're outraged, you're wrong, let's have the conversation. Listen, perfect.
How hard is that?
No, anytime. It could be when the family's together. It could be on a holiday. It doesn't matter. It's about being respectful, respecting the conversation, and then knowing when the conversation will stop. You find out more about others. They find out more about you. And you never know who's listening, Randy. You never know in a certain situation, if you're having a conversation with a family member, you never know who's over your shoulder thinking, Randy makes a lot of sense. And I never thought of it that way. That's important.
If people were reasonable and could actually converse, which is an art that we've lost in this country, and just educationally wise, meaning understanding your position. Like I said, Mike Lee, he knows who he is. He knows what he believes. He understands the Constitution. Some people would say, oh, he's just so strict about everything. Well, that's actually called discipline. Self-discipline, it's called. And we have so many people in this country who have no discipline of thought, of actions, of a myriad of different personality traits that most people would say, I don't even want to be around that person. So how do you get to a conversation with them? You probably don't. But if you could have a rational discussion with people who believe opposite of what you believe, and they actually would tell the truth, you might find common ground and come to some agreement where the country's going to have to do something like that pretty soon.
Well, there's people that you'll never find common ground with. There are people that you'll never find common ground with. There are people that will get angry when you speak of certain people, certain politicians, maybe certain presidents, and they will go off the rails. And that's not about the issues. That's about your feelings. That's about how you feel about something. A feeling is not a law. A feeling is not the Constitution. It's the things that are important. And it's about, again, going back to the rule of law and understanding that the debate, the conversation is about being respectful. But you can't get anything done if you don't speak. I said to Governor Rick Scott at the time, who is Senator Rick Scott now, on more than one occasion, while he was running for Senate, and he would come into the studio often here locally, and he knows this. I'm not telling him it's something he doesn't know. But
he's a smart guy.
Oh, absolutely. But for me, for politicians, you have to be willing to go to the places that people don't expect you to go. And you go to those places, you go to those communities, you go to those people with respect for the conversation, and you have to be able to present what it is that you believe, your ideology. As long as you believe in it, you are confident in it, and you believe that you are standing on firm ground. You're not standing on sand. You're standing on firm ground. If you believe that, then you can go anywhere. You can talk to anybody and have a respectful conversation. And he realizes that, and there's not enough politicians that do it. There are too many politicians that, and I'll say it, there's too many politicians that leave certain communities, will not go certain places, will not talk to certain individuals, will not talk to certain groups. I hate that people in groups. They shouldn't be in groups. We're all Americans. Let's talk about the issues. But why would you be afraid to go there? Well, they'll never vote for me, or they'll never believe what I'm saying because they disagree with me. Well, great. Okay, let's just hang it up. Why don't we just do that in everything in life? If you think that something bad is coming, then don't even bother doing it. If you think a negative is coming, then don't even bother trying. Why start a business? Randy, why start a business? Why would you start a business if somebody said to you, oh, you can't do it. You can't buy that property. You can't build that building. You can't do those things. And you say, oh, yeah, okay, never mind. I guess I won't. Don't tell me.
That's how you do become successful, because those people are certainly going to say that to you along the way. People are negative.
That's
but
politics.
You have to take the risk and go past it.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to say, because you jogged me.
Yeah.
The problem is incumbency. They get all the money once they're elected the first time.
Yeah.
And then they know they're a shoo-in. And then by and large, it's not all of them. Plenty of them have ethics and morals. But by and large, they know they can do whatever they want and still get elected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once they are there like that, they don't listen to you. Like you say, they're not going there because they don't have to.
Yeah. I like term limits. Some people don't like term limits because they say elections are term limits. Well, guess what? You can't have nice things anymore. It's been ruined. Things have been ruined by people who, as incumbents, do things that they shouldn't be doing. So unfortunately, where you would like to say the election will take care of it, yeah, that's in the perfect world. You have to live in the world that we live in, not the world that you wish we lived in. And that's what too many people do politically. They do things because they think that we live in this world that doesn't exist. And the fact is, you have to be in the moment. And the moment means that there are things politically that are going to happen that will definitely be something that you wouldn't do under the right perfect circumstances, because you broke it. You messed it up. And now we have to fix it. And the way we fix it is to do things. For example, like I've said on my show many times, there is such a divide right now in the country, and we are so polarized. You just can't imagine what the world was like when we weren't this polarized. It's astounding where we are, but somebody's going to have to win and walk away from this. Somebody's going to ultimately win this battle, and you have a choice. You're either going to be on one side that is going to for example, care about the Constitution, follow the Constitution, the rule of law, cares about our founding and that aspect of the country. Or you have another side that does not, that believes in something that has to be torn down and rebuilt in a different way. Somebody's going to win. Somebody has to win this battle. And when that side wins, ultimately what happens is what? You're going to change the aspect of everything. So if the left, for example, in the country succeeds in what they're doing, the United States exists, but not in the way that we know it. If the other side,
be something completely different,
right? And if the other side wins, if the right wins in this country, then it means that we continue with the moorings of the Constitution and we follow the rule of law. Now, having said that, both sides have something very interesting, Randy, that's going to happen, and it's this. A culture is going to change. Generations will be brought up a certain way. And so that's how the country fundamentally changes. So if you have a child that was born in or is 10, 12 years old in the year 2000, by the year 2008, 2010, 2012, they have one ideology or one idea of the country that was brought to them by an administration that was there for 8 years, that was able to cultivate what it was that was happening in the country, whether it was Ronald Reagan and, the shining city on the hill and all of the things that happened in the 80s and the feeling that we had in the country, or whether it was Barack Obama and the changes that happened from 2008 until 2016 and all of those years matter, just like in education. You can't just take 8 years of the education of a child and start fiddling around with how they're educated and then by the 8th year go, we got it. Well, guess what? In between, there's 8 years of kids that don't know what to do. You've messed them up. And so you've created an atmosphere.
I respect Dr. Ben Carson. I've read his story. I've seen him. He's articulate. He's obviously a brilliant pediatric neurosurgeon, which is probably the hardest specialty to have in the world.
Yeah.
And he will tell you that he came from a poor background and he could have gone to be a criminal and got shot down in the street at 21. That could have happened to him by virtue of where he lived and how he, fatherless home and stuff like that. But he had a mother who had some backbone and morals and wanted more for her children.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and that was the home of Martin Luther King Jr. I never admired anybody more than I admired Martin Luther King Jr. for what he did. And I agreed with him. I saw him beating people in the street to get them out of a White Castle. I saw it with my own eyes when I was 8 years old. That's an impression, right?
Right.
But what happened was they've reached his goals and surpassed it, and everybody's still acting like nothing has changed and throwing this racism around at everybody's face every time you turn around can't be helpful.
Well, let me ask you this, Randy, and I've talked about this before. Is that true? In other words, is that really the case? Does the country really feel that way? Or is that just a minority of voices that now have the majority of the media, the megaphone? Because I don't think that's the case.
You're probably right.
I think if you were to go across the country from sea to shining sea and maybe skip some of the sides and some of the cities on the sides, I might have a little bit. That's just me personally. But anyway, as you comb the country, I don't think what we're told the country is. It's not. It's not at all. I think that everything you believe and you think that's happening now, that the impression is things have changed so much, I don't think it has. I think that we're being told that. And that's good. It's bad that we still have those voices, those minority of voices, the loudest that seem to be getting the most attention and seem to be given a microphone and a stage and are having their voices heard. But I don't think they're the majority of the country. As a matter of fact, I know they're not the majority of the country. And I think that when you take the pendulum too far, and we've done this before, the pendulum is too far over to one side. And guess what happens? It either breaks or it swings back. It's going to be one or the other. So the pendulum is one-sided right now. It's going to swing. Right. It's going to swing.
Well, we could talk about this all day.
Yes, we could. That's what I do, Randy. That's what I do all the time.
Well,
so
that's the best part. But let's talk about you. What are some tips you personally would give? Maybe we talked about somebody young coming up. What would you say to them to be able to be successful like you? Well, how did you do it, and how could you help somebody along the way?
Well, in music, it's the same to me as talk radio. I have passion for both. My passion and the things that happened with music and what I was doing didn't stop me from the love of creating music, and I continue to do it even though some people would reject me. I didn't take that rejection as something that I should hang it up, give it up, walk away from it. I took the rejection, and I continue to take rejection as an opportunity to find out more, look inside, and grow. Like, this is a growth opportunity. Rejection is not the moment where you stop. It's the moment where you look and reflect and then get better. And that's the only way to go, is that direction. So that being bold on the talk side and conversation, but also on the music side, being bold with how good you believe you are. If you feel like you've got something, I can't tell you how many times, and even the first story that I tell about my music career, I had a song back in the 90s that I really felt was good, but I couldn't figure out how to get people to listen to it. And I wasn't sure what to do, but I knew if I could just present it to one single A&R person, I know there's one out there that would hear what I hear. I just believe it. And I couldn't figure out how to get in. And so there was a music conference that was going on in Miami. And I knew that it was going on in Miami. And I knew that there were big record labels that were there in Miami. And so I found out the names of the people that were in Miami. I just knew if one of them heard my song that I might have a chance. And so I called the office after the conference was done, and I called the main number, and I talked to the receptionist, and I had a nice conversation, and I just was small talking about trying to get in contact with somebody that I said that I knew that they weren't in town, that they were at the conference, but made small talk, found out their name, had a nice conversation, a very nice person at the front desk. Okay. Hang up the phone. I knew that they were coming back a couple of days later. They came back to the office. I called the receptionist and I said, hey, Joan, it's Drew. How are you? Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's great. Okay, fantastic. I know that Bob was at the conference just the other day in Miami. Is he around? Is there a chance I could talk to him? Yeah, absolutely. Hold on. Well, she put me in touch with him and boom, he picked the phone up. I said, listen, you don't know who I am. I know that you were at this conference. I just wanted to get in touch with you because I wanted to present you with this song. And I really think that you will like it. He thought that that was so funny and he thought that was so awesome that I did what I did because I explained it to him. He said, send it. I sent it. He loved it. He had it on hold for a couple of different artists at the time in the 90s. And I started a relationship for me that I still have today out of Nashville, and I'm able to talk to them whenever I want to, but also introduce me to other people, open doors. That kind of boldness without doing anything illegal or anything like that, but that kind of boldness because you believe in yourself, that's good. That's a good thing. As long as you're not doing anything wrong or illegal, like I said, I have to emphasize that. But that kind of getting that door open, you just have to be willing to do what it takes to open that door if you believe in yourself, and you do.
So I'm in sales, commercial real estate sales, have been for a long time.
Yeah.
And I listen to self-motivation and sales help, and, it's other people know what they're talking about and are successful. So you might as well ride their success as much as you can.
How did they do that? Right, exactly.
How did they do that? Right. Yes. So, one of the number one guys for 40, 50 years was Zig Ziglar. Mm-hmm. And you can still buy his stuff and hear him, and it's great, motivational. But he totally believed in himself 150%. But what he said, which really did help change my outlook, because everybody hates rejection and everybody hates no. And, it's just, it cuts you to the core when you really want to get something done. But he's got a thing that he talks about, and he says, listen, nobody's going to not everybody that you talk to is going to buy your product. You agree to that? Nobody's 100% when they pitch anything.
Correct.
Even Alfie Oakes down there at Seed to Table.
Yep.
People tell him no. Okay. But if it takes 10 sales pitches to make a sale, then when somebody says to you no, you go, yay, 8 more no's and I make that big commission. Then it's a mindset, right?
Right.
It becomes a mindset. And you say, no, thank you very much. Just like you did. You sent it. And sooner or later, somebody said yes.
Yeah.
But if you quit after 3,
you don't get to number 5.
Yeah, you might be at the grocery store packing boxes on the night shift 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
And one other thing, Randy, I'll say to that is I can't tell you how many people that I know that were rejected time and time again with music, love music, passionate about writing and producing music, that came to find out later in their years that they weren't an artist. They were never going to be an artist. But they work at record labels. They work at recording studios.
Right.
They work educating. They
found
teaching.
their niche.
Right. They stayed with it because of the love and the passion for what they do. But what they thought was going to be the pinnacle where they were going to end up didn't turn out to be. But life was great because they're still doing what they love. And they're still successful. And that's something to remember too.
So I told you I saw that Garth Brooks special, and it was like 2 different days for 2 hours each, and it was well worth watching.
Yeah.
But he was a good singer where he was from in Oklahoma, and all the people came out when he played at that bar, this bar, and he had people that said, "You are great, you're the best, you should go to Nashville." Well, he went to Nashville. Mm-hmm. And after about a year, people were saying, "Nah, you're never going to make it, kid." And he went back home defeated.
Yeah.
Now, he came back and he became, I guess, I don't know, you know the industry more than I do, but wouldn't you say he's one of the biggest stars there ever was?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, again, the stories, everybody has a story. I was just talking just a little earlier today about how much I love that even outside of music, outside of politics, I love sitting with people and hearing their story. Every single person has a story to tell, a life to talk about, and every bit of it, to me, is intriguing. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they do. There's something in your life that will capture my attention, and I'll hear something that I've never heard before because every person's unique. So there's always that story. And so to hear his story and to hear what he did, and then to see that, how many careers were launched in all different kind of ways just by his knock him down, get back up again, top of the charts and top of the world story, just changes lives. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's any industry or any profession.
Anything. It could be education, it could be real estate, it could be music, it could be anything. Doesn't matter. Everybody has a story if you just take the time to listen.
You hear of, in my business, developers who build something, it goes awry, they file bankruptcy, but somehow they come back. After that big crash, we had so many big-time builders who were used to having a lot of money in the toilet.
Yep.
But then they know how to do it, and they get resurrected, and they get past it, although I guarantee you, when they were going through it, they felt very bad for themselves, for their family, for losing the lifestyle, for so many reasons. But you could either just lay down and die, I guess, or you can pull your bootstraps up and get back to work and do it the way you did it the first time.
Yep. And you're always going to
go back at it.
And you're always going to have that love, right? You always have that passion. Listen, if you're somebody who deals in real estate, you love it. You love it.
I love what I do. I'm 70. I'm never retiring.
Exactly. You love doing it. And so you've had your failures, you've had your successes, but you always come back after the failures for the same reason that you come back for the successes, because ultimately you love it. That's a passion. So
it's a passion.
Yeah. And so that passion, and everybody has a passion. So, and you have to nurture that passion. And you know, if you get off the road and somehow you stumble, and the passion doesn't go away, just that opportunity in that moment went away. So you just come back.
Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed hearing Drew Steele's story. You're an amazing guy, and we kind of got a little bit of how you did it. But give us some bucket list items, Drew. What you're not? You said you're 57. You got 25 more years, probably. What are you going to do?
Well, I hope so. What am I going to do? I'm going to love on my family. I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to get closer to my Lord and Savior. No
Absolutely.
doubt.
Thank you.
I am going to keep doing what I'm doing on the radio to hopefully help to bring hearts and minds to a position that I believe is one that will lead to individual freedom and liberty and success. And that's not just words, everybody. That's not just talking points from some side. That's reality. Nobody is going to go anyplace else and find the kind of opportunity that we have here. Nobody's going to find a country in the history of the world that fought wars to do the right thing. Nobody's going to go. And the people that are coming here continue to come for a reason. And if you think it's for the handouts, that ain't it. It's not that. It's for an opportunity by a blessed nation that we hope will continue to be blessed as long as we continue.
And we are praying that stays like that.
And that ultimately, is it.
Anyway, You're a great guy, and you got any books that you read that motivates you that you could pass on to somebody that you think would be a help?
Oh goodness. I got to tell you, lately, for me, the two things that I've been reading or trying to stay up with is continue to read my Bible, and also
Yes.
I got to tell you, when it comes to books, I'm not reading a lot of books lately. More for me, it's periodicals, it's founding documents, it's kind of exploring and studying some of the things that I'm talking about to be better.
History, a lot
and
of history.
to get better at being able to communicate what it is that I've been talking about at a deeper level in some ways, so that, again, so we can, help hopefully a community and a world to understand the greatness of this country.
Well, the number one bestseller is the Bible in the history of the world. And if people would just read it and get back to that wisdom and understanding, boy, we'd be a better place all the way around.
Yes, we would, sir.
Would be.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, thank you so much. I'm gonna say goodbye, and hopefully we can do this again some other time. But I can't tell you how overwhelmed I am that you took your time to come and be on my podcast.
Well,
how did they do that?
You are the best, my friend. You are. And you keep doing what you're doing. And I'm going to, once again, check out what you got going on the show, because there's a lot of things I want to find out how they did. I got questions, and I'm sure you're going to come up with the answers with the people that have done it, right?
One at a time, as they say.
That's how it goes.
Well, thank you, Drew, and you have a good evening. Tell your family I said hey.
I will.
Tell us how you did it. Tell us how you did it.